Today, I have quite the to-do list to get through. I enjoy using my weekly desk planner to map out everything I need to get done. So hopefully I can check them all off and you guys can see what a day in my life looks like. Today, my goal is to plan out the first few chapters of my next book series. I recently finished writing the final book in my first ever series, which is composed of 5 young adult paranormal shifter romances. The link is in the description if you're curious. Over the last few weeks, I've been having fun imagining an entirely new storyline in another world, not to mention all of the characters and the magic systems they use and interact with. The inspiration for this story actually came from the absolute disaster that is Disney's Wish. When I watched the trailer for that movie, I actually found myself rooting for the villain instead of the incredibly naive and selfish protagonist. That sparked the idea for a story that is essentially Wish's opposite, where the good king, or the good king's very handsome son, a wink wink, has to protect his kingdom from the selfish girl who wants to steal the power of wish granting for herself. Then, of course, I throw in a witch, a druid, and maybe a swashbuckling pirate captain for good measure, and voila! We have the recipe for a story that will hopefully make a bit more sense and be a tad more satisfying than Disney's recent monstrosity. At first, I had planned to tell the tale only from the perspective of the prince, but as I continued developing my characters, I realized I could only truly do them justice by writing from several perspectives, so I settled on 3 characters to tell the story. I briefly debated including the villain's perspective as well, but felt that might give away a little bit too much of the plot. One part of the brainstorming process that I really love is scrolling Pinterest and pinning gorgeous character and environmental art to a board for the book series. And even though I know there are many mixed opinions on the use of artificial intelligence for both writing and illustrating, I do have to say that some of the AI art on Pinterest is quite beautiful. Of course, I will not be using AI for any of the writing, since I want to craft this book series as carefully and perfectly as I can, so I can be proud of my work. But I have found some inspiration while looking at AI-generated art, as well as traditional art, and I've enjoyed curating a board for this series. I'll leave the link to it in the description if you want to see the amazing inspiration for some of my characters and the world-building environment, and I'll put a few of my favorites on the screen right now. And of course, a couple of these are my current phone wallpapers. I have also found that drawing out the map while still in the brainstorming or outlining phase of putting the book together is extremely valuable. It helps me visualize the world and imagine how the geography might have influenced the people who live there, as well as their magic systems. For example, the people of Astoria, the Star Kingdom, are the farthest north on the map, in a land of mountains and lakes, so they can be closer to the North Star and the stars that make wish granting possible. On the other hand, the Druids draw their magic from nature and must live in a heavily forested area. Having a map is also the best way I've found to keep distances consistent. I wouldn't want it to take my characters a day of travel to get to the southern tribes, but a month to reach their neighbors, the Druids. That would make no sense at all and be much too confusing for the reader. And besides being fun to draw, and of course fun to name, the map keeps important elements of the story consistent. As you can probably tell, I am very much excited for this new series. I've already fallen in love with my characters and their world, and want to do my absolute best to bring it to life in my writing and my illustrations. Now that I've met my outlining goal for the day, it's time to work on some line art for my first book series, my current one. At the moment, I am in the process of editing the fifth and final book in that series, and that includes finishing up the illustrations that will go in the chapter headings and at the beginning and end of the book. I just love adding these little details to my books, and each one has a special meaning. The decorative spacers or other illustrations might not seem meaningful when you first start reading, but they will make perfect sense as you continue reading, and especially by the time you finish. This winged fox illustration is one of those that develops more meaning as you continue reading, and as it appears and reappears in the story. I've always been a fan of cute and fluffy foxes, so it made perfect sense to add some to my books. I don't want to give anything away, so I will leave it at that. I often like to sketch these guys first traditionally in my sketchbook before I move into Procreate on my iPad to finalize the line art, which I will then export as a transparent background PNG so I can add it to my book formatting software, and of course to the series coloring pack, which I'll be publishing on Amazon soon. The digital download version is already available in my shop. Now that I've crossed everything off today's to-do list, I decided to reward myself with a little treat. Not that I need an excuse to eat sweets. I've also been enjoying reading this book on writing and world building. I found it very helpful, and as I'm reading, I find myself thinking about how I can apply these great principles of a good story to the current series that I am working on. So hopefully with all these great ideas, I will be able to make it as amazing as I possibly can. I hope you enjoyed watching and feel inspired to work on your dreams and aspirations and wishes, wink wink, as well.